Hello there and welcome back to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast with your host, Mr. Laz Michaelides here, and on the screen opposite me, Mr. Felipe Amorim. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
All good. Yeah, we're back with another album episode, and the title of this episode is "Sweet Sounds of Stones." And if the title didn't give away, we are going to be doing the brand new Rolling Stones album, which is called Hackney Diamonds. Now, the album came out on October 20th, 2023, and it was recorded over 2019, 2020, and then between December 2022 and January 2023, across a multitude of studios as well, wasn't it, Felipe? New York, LA, London, even the Bahamas. The genre is your typical Rolling Stones kind of blues rock. It comes in at 48 minutes and produced by Andrew Watt. So Felipe, I mean, I think the answer is kind of obvious, but do you want to tell us even more why you chose this album for this week's episode?
Well, we keep talking about like old bands releasing new stuff, or if they even should be touring or releasing or recording stuff. And I love the fact that like our heroes are still around doing something. And I would be happy if the Stones were only touring or appearing on TV from time to time. But when they decide to go out there and record an album, which is, if I'm not wrong, the first album of new songs in 18 years.
So the last album full of originals was 2005's. I think it was A Bigger Bang. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
But yeah, because they did an album in 2016, but that was covers, wasn't it? So this is brand new, originally written material.
Yeah, the last album that is Blue and Lonesome. I think that's the name of the album. So that was a blues cover album. I'm going to start by talking about that album, you know, because that has, I mean, just what I read about it was that they got together with the intention of writing new stuff, and they started jamming, you know, playing the stuff they used to listen to, like the blues songs they love so much. They never went too far from the blues, right? Like that's the one beautiful thing about the Stones. They managed to innovate and be extremely creative without never sounding too much different from the blues, which is not easy to do, right? To keep that root in a style that is like, you know, the blues has its rules and it has its normal form and structure, and they've managed to do something really, really unique, departing from the blues, but not going too far. And so when they were jamming to that kind of stuff, they were obviously recording, because, you know, those guys, they got a lot of money and loads of time, so they're in studio. So whatever you do, just press record. You know, they're not spending tape, right? Or they have enough money to pay a sound engineer to be there for the whole day as well. So they recording whatever they jamming to. And in the end, I don't know if it was a producer or someone involved in the project, just said, like, guys, you've got a whole album. You don't need to write anything. Just that your jams are good enough to be released as a blues cover album. And that's what they did. And I think was a really, really nice album. It's very loose. It's very like relaxed. They just literally just having fun, which I think it's missing a lot in modern music. People just having fun and playing whatever they want to play.
Yeah, you're right.
But that was it.
Technical and intricate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's this kind of search for perfection in especially modern radio music. Everything's got to be, you know, it's got to follow a certain rule for length of the song, no guitar solos and all that stuff. And the Stones are just like, we're going to play some blues, and they recorded it. And now I think they were like, fuck it, let's do something new. And they did it. And I'm glad it came out at the end of the year. I'm glad they did something now, you know, let's say before it's too late.
I agree with you, man. I think something that's really got to be said about the Rolling Stones is you were touching on their blues and sort of how they had the blues in their music. I think the Rolling Stones are one of those bands that actually fit in the middle of a lot of movements. So if you think, you know, with the hard rock and I don't know, not heavy metal, with the hard rock movement, you kind of got Led Zeppelin, haven't you, doing that hard rock and bluesy kind of thing. Rolling Stones were kind of edging their way in there as well. You've also got the Beatles and the Kinks doing pop music. So whilst Zeppelin were focusing on hard rock, the Beatles and the Kinks kind of went on the poppy side. The Stones did that as well. So I think they're quite an important band. Would you agree? And especially in those early 60s of really helping pop music become intertwined with rock, but also giving hard rock its own avenue of success.
Yeah, I think let's put the Beatles in the same category as the Stones. Like I would say that the Beatles and the Stones were as important to modern music or popular music as bands as Sinatra and Elvis were as solo singers.
Yeah.
Because you get like before you had rock bands, it was all about singers, like like Elvis or Chuck Berry or Johnny Cash, and then you have the two major like rock bands in the world from the UK, which is quite remarkable.
I think
the Beatles and the Stones, and I think for different reasons they were the two most important bands for a whole decade of rock and roll.
Yeah, I'd add two more names to that. I'd add The Who and the Kinks. As in the group of bands that, like you said, really took away from what we thought 50s pop music was and kind of just went on our own new path of bands playing instruments and the band mattering, not just who was singing the song, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think this again, it's interesting that they were highly influenced by American music, but coming from a different cultural background, you can't just sound like the Americans.
No,
it's not going to work. So they found their own way of doing stuff. Like on the Stones, they do have a lot of country and folk influence as well. I think even more than the Beatles.
Definitely, yeah. Excellent. So I did the album info already. Do you know what? Before I've said to you, you can lead this episode, as in take us in the direction you want. But one thing I wanted to touch on that I found really crucial about this album was the producer. Because have you done any research into this?
No, I don't know who the producer is.
Okay, so the producer is a gentleman called Andrew Watt, who is 5 years older than me. So he's a young guy, like I'm not going to give my age away. Then again, I'm younger. I'm younger anyway, aren't I? So I don't have to worry about that. He's I think he's 33 or something. He has over the last few years been producing albums for old bands doing new stuff. So this is what he's done. He's done Iggy Pop's Every Loser, which was a couple of years ago. Ozzy Osbourne's last two albums, Patient Number 9 and
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And he did Elton John's The Lockdown Sessions, and he did Eddie Vedder's Earthling. Now, I just think this is incredibly important because we've got here a gentleman in Andrew Watt who is taking these older bands and these older artists and refreshing and giving them like a new, I don't want to say it's a new sound, but it's certainly fresh and exciting. And I think half of what works, half of what makes Hackney Diamonds as good as I think it is the production. Because I don't feel like, I mean, tell me if you disagree, Felipe, but I don't feel the Rolling Stones are changing much of their songwriting formula. It's not like they're now going to write a prog album and they went from being a heavy metal band. They've stuck with a formula for the past 60 years and it's worked. And I think if your production isn't right, playing with the same songwriting formula can get very, very boring. Yet the production on this album, and as I've pointed out, the other stuff, Ozzy Osbourne's last couple of albums, it's so good that I think even though we're getting the same songwriting formulas, it's sounding fresh and exciting. What do you think?
I agree with you. I would add that even though there's like a clear search for quality, quality of recording and sound and effects, I don't think his sounds are like modern pop music. I don't think he tried to push his own agenda into the band.
Can I add something quickly? The interesting thing is that he's also, before he did these older artists, he produced the likes of Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus. So he's come from a radio-friendly pop music that you're saying it doesn't sound like, and he's gone and started producing blues, hard rock, rock and roll, and even sort of heavy metal, if you want to talk about Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah. Well, I think he did a phenomenal job. I think the sound of this album is great. And it's Uh, with all of the technology available, I think it still sounds really raw, and it sounds like a band. And
Yeah.
we keep talking about this, and like I love bands that sound like a bunch of friends playing together, like in a room. Although obviously there's overdubs, there's all like all the production and post production that you have, but you can hear the sounds of the instruments, like
Everyone is perfect, isn't it?
it sounds like it sounds like a rock band, not too heavy, not too soft, like and the other thing, which is part of production more than songwriting, because like you can write a song start to finish, and after you think you believe you finish writing it and you're ready to record, you can decide to change the tempo. That's a really big thing in a song. You can turn a great song into crap by picking the wrong tempo, if it's too fast or too slow. And I think there's an overall pace for this album. It's like medium fast. They never, there's maybe 3 ballads out of like 12 songs, but they into the folk and gospel side of things, but not I don't feel like it slows down too much. So for me, it was a pleasant experience start to finish. Regardless of like some songs being better than the others, the overall pace of the album makes you listen to the album without skipping songs. I had that feeling. I don't know if you had the same feeling.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, like you said, there was some songs that I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy, because it's an enjoyable album, isn't it? I mean, is it the best Rolling Stones work ever? No, but it comes close, man. I mean, I'm sure we'll sum it up in our thoughts at the end, but man, to produce an album like this 60 years after your first one, it's just a great job they've done. And I think, like you said, the pacing of the album is what keeps you hooked and interested. And even if there's songs that you don't enjoy as much as others, you're going to carry on, and you don't end up skipping any. That's
also the songs are short. I love that, like straight to the point, verse, chorus. There's no long intros at all for the whole album. They play a couple of bars and they go straight into the vocals, delivering the message straight away. And talk about the message, I mean, what would you think is the most rock and roll thing about this album? Do you think is the lyrics, is like guitars, or
I'd say
you can say, I mean, more than one thing. What do you think makes this album a rock album?
The vibe, the jamminess. It sounds like you said, it sounds like a band or a bunch of guys playing music that they've been rehearsing in their garage for a few weeks, and they're now getting to record it. So I suppose that comes down to the performance and the production. What about you?
I think there's a lot of that. I think for me, I'll tell you what it is. It's really easy to sound cliche when you're trying to be rock and roll, but I think what they did was a genuine attempt of doing a rock album. Like we're gonna try to sound rock and roll without being, using the cliches of rock and roll with good taste. I can't find a better way of describing this, but there's loads of references to drinking and smoking, right? That's like, and you can, when you listen to the album, it feels like you're in a club in London and someone is smoking. It's like back in the day when people could smoke. I don't smoke, by the way, so I don't like it. But it feels like you smoke. Someone is smoking in the bar, having a drink and talking and discussing their relationship, because quite a few lyrics about breakups and like relationships not going well. But it's a different take when someone older is talking about those things. Like as the first song suggests, like, okay, things are not going right, but I'm not angry and I'm not pissed off. I feel like if most lyrics come from Mick Jagger, I believe it is, I think he sounds like someone who accepts getting old and accepts that he's done, he's lived the best part of his life, and he's still a rock star, but he's approaching the end of this.
Can we ask? I've got a question to ask. I hope it's not insensitive, but how is he still alive? Him and Keith Richards. My God, maybe that's a whole other episode.
Okay.
Musicians that are alive that shouldn't be.
We should do like an episode about the immortal musicians.
Yeah, that's it. I can't believe how good his vocals sound on this album. Do you agree?
Yeah,
They
I
sound
think it's
phenomenal. And even on the episode at the end of last year that we put out of the Now and Then, the Beatles, the new Beatles song, I complained about how, although I enjoyed it, I complained how Paul McCartney sounded, because I thought his voice sounded quite old in the recording. Yet
yeah.
Mick Jagger, man, wow. Obviously, there's a difference between his first album, the first album in '64, and this one. But my God, man, his voice at 80 years old.
Yeah, the thing with
Wow.
Mick is his vocals are all about expression,
Yeah.
right? He
Yeah.
doesn't have a huge range or like an exceptional technique.
Yeah. It's
You know,
about
although he is
his
technically good, I'm
tone,
not saying
isn't
he's
it?
not, but he's got a tone. He's got that way of like sometimes screaming at the microphone, and he would attempt some high pitched notes, like, and it's super cool when he does
Yeah.
it, but he doesn't do that. He doesn't overdo it, and it's just like it's like he is feeling the lyrics. It's not like, yeah, I'm just like reading from a piece of paper. You know, he really expresses the feelings behind the lyrics, and you
Yeah.
can hear that.
Exactly.
And again, his choice of words for most of the lyrics are just yeah,
Very good.
absolutely poetic.
Excellent. Do you want to lead this? What do you want to talk about with the
And
songs?
I want to talk about the songs, and also about another thing that makes this album really rock and roll, which is the special guests. Right? They have a list of
Before we do
guests.
that,
Yeah.
can you tell us about the title? Because we were
Oh yeah,
talking
Hackney
last week.
Diamonds. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're talking
So
about that.
being the resident, listen, I am from London. I was born there and lived there for the first few years of my life. But Felipe is now the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast's London resident. So
Yes, exactly.
can you explain to us what a Hackney Diamond is, please, Felipe?
Yeah, I'm the Long
The
Live Rock and Roll
honorary
podcast
Londoner.
ambassador in London. Yeah, it had to be a foreign, isn't it? I don't want to miss the joke. So Hackney Diamonds is an expression that people, when someone breaks into a shop, or maybe if they break into someone's car. So basically, criminal activity. Like what they leave behind is, pieces of glass. So, so those are the Hackney Diamonds. So Hackney is a
Hackney
neighborhood in
Diamond is
London.
a piece of glass left over from a break-in.
Yeah,
It's rock and roll, isn't it?
So it's really rock and roll.
And you
I imagine like people in America, they were like, well, what the hell is Hackney Diamonds? And if they know that Hackney is a place, they might just think, oh, it's proper
diamond
diamonds,
shop, yeah.
But it's
Oh,
not.
those Rolling Stones, they went from working class boys to being rather posh, didn't they? Talking about diamonds. No, people, it's the opposite. Diamond. It's the opposite. It's about breaking into something and leaving broken glass on the floor.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Speaking about that, there's an interesting contrast between his reflections on life in the big city and my absolute favorite song in the album, which is track number, I just want to check the track number 6, Dreamy Skies.
Oh yeah, that's a lovely one, isn't it?
Because that's like, it's about, I don't want to be in the city, I want to be I want to be in the country. And it's that, like, I think it's that kind of feeling when you got too old for the chaos of the big city and just want some peace of mind.
But I think the nice question to ask with that song Dreamy Skies is, where does he want to retire? Does he want to retire to the English countryside where he's from, or, as the music would suggest, America? It's got a very nice American country feel, doesn't it? With like harmonica solo, feels like a bit of pedal steel, and the dobro guitar as well. Lovely song, I thought.
Yeah, actually, do you know what? Because we don't have to follow any scripts. I want to start talking about that song.
Yeah, sure.
Because that one is the most like different one in the whole album.
It's unique. It's the unique one.
So we're talking about production. It's such a simple one that like I can hear some brushes. I might be wrong. I didn't listen to it. Like as a musician, I was listening to the whole album as a fan of the Stones. I'm not like trying to figure out what the drummer is doing or whatever. So I think there's brushes, like acoustic guitar. It sounds a lot like American music, like folk and country.
Yeah.
And it might, and there's a line in it. An old AM radio is all that I've got. it just plays Hank Williams and some bad honky tonk, and it's
lovely,
and then
beautiful.
yes, yeah, he's clearly talking about life in the country in America. If you have an AM radio, the only thing you get is Hank Williams, which is good, right? It's not a bad thing to have a radio playing Hank Williams the whole day. I wouldn't mind. So it's just yeah, I think there's that feeling of, oh my God, I'm an old man. I just want to be in the country and relax. Yeah. But I think there's there's a conflict there, like, you know, I can't get away from the city. For me, most of the album is like all this smoking and drinking and playing rock and roll in clubs and, you know, touring with my band, and then go to the country and come back. I don't know, maybe it's the end of the Stones. Maybe they kind of indicating that they're gonna finally call it a day. I mean, if this is their last studio album, I'm really, really satisfied with it.
I mean, how can you not be? Yeah, how can you not be? Where do you want to take us?
Well, let's talk about Charlie Watts, right? Okay, because Charlie, well, sadly left us, like, and well, he had this amazing career with the Stones, and he was, you know, the foundation of that sound for so long. And my God, what a groove, man. I saw that man playing for 2 million people in Copacabana Beach in 2006.
Wow.
And he was the heart and soul of the Stones. You can say whatever, you know, like, yeah, it's about Mick Jagger's, you know, dancing steps and all that stuff. But it's the groove that makes them who they are. And
I was going to say he brought the backbone of Motown drumming to rock music.
Yes,
exactly. In my opinion, would you agree with that as a drummer?
Yeah.
He just kind of kept it so simple, not many fills, nothing too intricate, just was the backbone of the band so that the rest of them could thrive and do their thing.
Exactly. And he was like solid as a rock, you know, keeping the beat, keeping the pace for 2 hours whilst the guys are doing all the performance. He wasn't a performer in that sense. Charlie Watts wasn't a guy who would be like dressing like a rock star. Yeah. You know, in a good way, he looked like a lawyer or an accountant. You know, he looked like, these are my clothes. I don't care. I don't want to be a rock star. And he's like, it literally looked like he didn't give a shit, and he was doing a great job. Like for, you know, all those decades as their drummer. So you would think, well, after Charlie Watts' death, that there's no more Rolling Stones. And I think, I mean, fair play for them to carry on without putting a new official member in the band replacing him.
2021, he passed away.
Yeah. So basically, they got Steve Jordan on drums, who people might know from his work with John Mayer and even Eric Clapton. He did some stuff with him, I guess. And he did loads of stuff with Keith Richards in his solo career. He is a multi-instrumentalist. It wouldn't surprise me if he played some of the guitars and basses in this album, even if there's no credit to his name.
Steve Jordan, you're talking about.
Jordan,
yeah. Well, he played drums on this album, didn't he?
Yeah, he does. So the thing is, he joined them for the tour. He's one of my favorite drummers. I love him.
Yeah.
And did a great job live. I saw them in Hyde Park with him on drums, and he's so respectful to the original arrangements. He's like, I'm not trying to prove that I have my own style or whatever. He was just sounding like Charlie in a very respectful way with like really, really quality groove. And he's in the album, you know. But here's the thing. Charlie Watts recorded some stuff that has been used in the album. Do you know which songs? I don't know.
I do, yes. So he recorded Mess It Up and Live by the Sword, so tracks 7 and 8.
That's interesting.
It is interesting because they're the most. I found Mess It Up to be, in my opinion, like for me, it was too poppy. It was the one I disliked most on the album. And I thought that's interesting because normally you'd get, if you're missing some band members like through death or something.
Well, that song to me, I don't know if you think of it, it sounds almost like disco, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very odd. Yeah, very poppy. But then the next one, Live by the Sword, that was, I thought that was like one of the most classic Stones tunes. Just had a real old style, this is the Rolling Stones feel to it. What did you think?
That is my second favorite song in the album.
Yeah, it's very
here's the thing. Interesting thing about that song, I started listening to it. I love the lyrics because it's about facing the consequences of your choices. You know, it's like I don't remember the exact line. Like, let me see, because I've got some of the lyrics here with me, and I want to check it out because I think it's beautiful. Yeah. If you live like a whore, better be hardcore. If you live by the clock, well, you're in for a shock. If you're living for food, better lick up your plate. If you want to be in fashion, well, you'll be out of date. And it's a simple thing, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, you want to be fashion, so yeah, but you're going to be out of date. It's amazing that how simple it is and how cool the message is.
Yeah.
But what surprised me about that song, there's a psychedelic bit in the middle, right, that reminds me of what they did back in the 60s. There's a short, like, kind of, there's a halftime vibe. For it only happens once in the song. It's like the middle eight of the song, and builds up back to the original vibe of the song. And it's like, oh, what a cool groove and vibe. And it was like, my God, the piano sounds just like classic Stones, which brings me to the point. I didn't know. I was just listening and enjoying the piano. So, the piano is the best part of the song. And who is the pianist in that song? Elton John.
That's it. Yeah. Brilliant. See, now I like this because you were going to, before I asked you to talk to us about Hackney Diamonds, you were going to talk about the guests. And I think that before you say what you have to say, I was really happy personally with the guests they had on, and not because of who it was, but because of the appropriateness of the guest. You guys might remember that Ozzy Osbourne released an album called Patient Number 9 like last year or the year before. And my issue was...
Same producer, right?
Same producer, yes. But my issue was every song had a special guest on. And so it kind of stopped being an Ozzy album. It felt like it's like Ozzy and Friends. It didn't really have anything personable about it. It didn't have 6 Ozzy songs and then 6 songs with guests. Okay, so it's mainly an Ozzy album and then he's just having fun at the end. It felt a bit cheap, if I'm being honest. Whereas this, I'm glad that we're getting 80% of it is, well, I suppose all of it is Rolling Stones, but then you just get a guest here, 5 songs later, another guest, two guests on the second to last song. I like that it was done tastefully and not, because they could have got anyone, man. They're the Rolling Stones. They could have got every person, every old singer that's still going like Elton John, every new singer like Lady Gaga. They could have got them all to feature on a song. I'm really glad they didn't, though.
Yeah, exactly. Because they could. That would be a easy way to turn the album into a hit without having to put too much effort as songwriters or musicians. Like, what if we get one famous pop singer per song and just make it like a #1 album based on the fact that we connecting with the younger generation or whatever. They didn't try actually anything like that. They jamming with their friends, people from. There's 2 guests from the same generation and one, younger, which is not like, still not an up and coming artist.
No, yeah, she's established.
But anyway, but we talked. So I want to specifically talk about the song "Bite My Head Off," which it's a punk song to me. It's a relentless, fast riff that just carries on for the whole of the song, and the way they're using the guests, that's what I'm saying. It's not, do you know what the cheesy thing to do it is? I'm friends with Paul McCartney. Despite people thinking that there's a rivalry between Beatles and Stones, which is, we all know it's not true. Mick Jagger could just have said, "Oh no, I'm friends with Paul. I'm going to get him to sing a song with me," and everyone would be talking about it. Oh, here's me and Paul singing together. No, he got Paul to feature on guitar.
And bass.
Okay, I didn't know he was.
Because in the breakdown, that really fuzzy bass. He goes, "Go on, Paul," like that.
Oh, that's the bass. I thought he was okay. I thought he was doing the guitar solo. No,
it's like a really heavily fuzzy bass. But
that's the bass. That's the bass.
And it's funny.
No, I'm saying I thought he did a guitar solo or something like that. No, he was on bass.
Yes, yeah.
So that's the thing. So he could have Paul McCartney as a lead singer for the chorus. Like, here's Paul McCartney, or singing a whole verse. And it's basically, no, here's Paul playing an instrument.
Yeah,
like he would play with the Beatles. He would play
exactly.
guitar or bass with the Beatles, and that's what
Yeah.
he's doing in the track. And also, it's not like showing off; it's just playing what the song needs.
And it's a really simple bass solo, if that's what you want to call it. Anyway, it's
Yeah,
like it was just, or maybe a groove is a better word. But again, really simple. There's no point of showing off. You're just doing it for the sake of the music. But I think actually it's really funny what you said about Bite My Head Off, because you labeled it punk. And whilst I
I
wouldn't
think it's punk.
disagree, I I've got notes here that I said it feels like Mick has been unleashed on this song. And I love the idea that after decades of pandering to record labels' wants and wishes, we want this album to sell, so please don't swear on it. Feels like Mick's just been allowed to go free, and just because he's swearing all through the song. And this is the lyric I love that proves my point. I ain't on a leash, I ain't on a chain. And I thought that was just a great lyric for a really
I love
cool,
it, man.
over the top, heavy, hard rock song.
Again, I think when okay, what I would say about the point they are in their careers now is like if you got to this point, you've got like multiple platinum albums and you're a multimillionaire rock star, and you have all the time and money in the world available to record an album. It would be like really disappointing if it's not at least good, right? So I think they knew from the beginning, like there's no point going to a studio to do something that doesn't sound good enough to be a Stones album.
Yeah.
And you have good producers. So, but the whole thing is they made the right choices, and it's all about that. You couldn't have great songs and get a producer that makes you sound like Taylor Swift, or you could nothing against Taylor Swift, by the way. I think she's good, but the thing is, it's not what the Stones are. You could try to put some guests into the album that have nothing to do with the vibe of the songs.
Yeah.
So all the choices from production to guests and effects on guitars and everything seem to be really good. There's one thing I found quite odd. Is the song? Let me find the title of the song here. Tell Me Straight. I think it's Keith Richards on vocals.
It is, yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah, and I love his vocals, super cool. Like, but the guitar sounds really like 80s, and it's that makes it so different from the rest of the album that I don't know how I feel about this
it's
song.
funny you say that, because the track number 5, Whole Wide World, I felt the same. I've got very Britpoppy, kind of like Pulp, the song Year 3000. No, not Year 3000. That's Busted. What's the Disco 2000?
Yeah.
Year 3000. That's Busted. That's crazy. That's 2000s punk. Anyway, but the guitar tone in that song, Whole Wide World, it was really Dire Straitsy.
Yeah,
that really focusing on tone and going a bit technical. Listen to it again and you'll hear.
But that song is essentially pop, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So
it's not. There's a 4 on the floor groove,
Yeah, I find it quite funny that they, as what you've mentioned as well as what I've mentioned, is even now, not that I don't think the Rolling Stones were ever like leaders of pioneering technology and guitar innovations, but funny that they're playing with tones. Like you think they could just come in and be like, right, this is Keith's tone, not going to fuck with it, just leave it. But he's actually, as you said, he's played around a bit, and man, it just tells me that these guys still have appetite to try and do something different and to try new things.
Exactly. And again, if they did a whole like disco / pop album, I would be extremely disappointed. Not that I don't like that kind of stuff, but it's like it's not the Stones. But,
exactly.
But they did a couple of songs, and it's like, okay, I'll take that. It's fine, I can, I also don't make it too long. That's fine. 3 minutes, 2.5, whatever. So move on to the next song. And the third track, Depending on You, is an acoustic number that reminded me of Wild Horses and some of the acoustic Angie, so those acoustic numbers they did back in the day, and I think that's intentional. That's one that sounded to me like, shall we do something very like classic Stones acoustic number? So I think that was the intention. It didn't disappoint me. Super cool, like slide guitar, folk vibes. Like the melody kind of reminded me of Bob Dylan, but not the chorus. They have a strong chorus. I think the choruses are, most of them, amazing, well written.
That's what's so good. I feel like they're pop choruses, but done with a standard Rolling Stones backing. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah. Again, just to reinforce my opinion here, I don't think they are trying to sound modern. They're just being themselves, and that's what rock and roll should be. And well, I mean, I'm really glad the Stones are, you know, willing to play their music for us, and also they took the time to go out there and record an album and put it out, despite knowing that everyone would say there would be like loads of people criticizing them, you know, oh, we don't want to listen to new Stone stuff, or they too old, or this and that. And I mean, hats off to them.
Well, they've proven everyone wrong. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And okay, we talked about the guests. There's one that we haven't mentioned yet. So, and that's a great song. So then we're going to talk about the singles. And is it only 2 singles from the album? Am I right?
I didn't look.
That's one of them. That's definitely one of
yes,
them.
yeah. So 2 singles, Angry, and then the one you're about to talk about.
Yeah. So the 11th track in the album, "Sweet Sounds of Heaven," features Lady Gaga. What do you think of it, Laz?
Loved it, man.
How do you rate her performance?
Absolutely, yeah, fantastic. Oh, her or it?
Yeah. Well, the song and,
I mean, put it this
Lady
way,
Gaga's voice.
If you hadn't have told me Lady Gaga was on it, I wouldn't have known, which means she's done a brilliant job, because she's done what they've asked of her, and she's come in and put her vocals on a track, and I'm assuming she's been asked in a special way. Can I spoil who the other guest is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've also got Stevie Wonder on keys and piano.
Oh, yeah, I forgot this.
Yeah. So you are obviously, think about it, the Stones meet Stevie in terms of music. It's going to be soul-y. It's going to be kind of gospel-y in a sense. So when you've got these 2 legends, the Rolling Stones and Stevie Wonder, doing a song together, it's so easy as someone as big as Lady Gaga to come in and just put her own style, not her own style, but what she's used to doing, and her normal tone and timbre and singing voice, onto a track and say, okay, well, Stevie's done his keys, the Stones are doing their music, I'm Lady Gaga, I'm going to do my thing. But she hasn't, man. She has come in and she has done some fantastic gospel singing, you know, to be honest. And the way that her vocals work with Mick Jagger's throughout the song is fantastic, really beautiful. And I thought the song, yeah.
No,
I was just going to say, I thought the song as a whole was brilliant, just showcasing the brilliant jamming abilities of the Stones, the arrangement, the horns at the end. To me, it was just a celebration of the Rolling Stones. Yeah, I'll say more in my monologue at the end, but it is just a celebration of everything they were good at from the past in one song. It's bluesy, it's soulful. It's not really rocky because it's not that kind of song, but like I said, I'll say it a third time, it's a celebration of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, and there's some the lyrics. There's some like I think really deep reflections of aging.
Yeah,
I think there's some. Yeah, listen to this part. Let us sing, let us shout, let us all stand up proud. Let the old still believe that they are young.
Well, I actually didn't even think about what the song title could mean, but "Sweet Sounds of Heaven," it's like, is this not...
It's like heaven is calling, right?
It's like, well, it's coming, and yeah. I'm going to be ready for it, because the sweet sounds are calling to me, so... Oh, man.
Yeah.
We're going to get emotional again, like the Beatles episode.
It's so... I'll tell you how I've... how I got in touch with this song first. The single came out, and there was, you know, as you are in London, scrolling on a phone, like on the tube, and it came like, for people who don't live in London or the UK, the tube is the underground system, you know, the subway.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're listening from any other country.
That's the one.
Yeah. So I'm there, like, on the underground, listening, like just scrolling down, finding some news or whatever on the phone, and I came across like new Rolling Stones single featuring Lady Gaga, and it was the first song from this album that I've listened start to finish, because it came immediately after the first single, which we're going to talk about as well. So I'm waiting for my train, and I've got Wi-Fi connection on the tube, and I want to listen to just a little bit. Let's have a taste of it. And I'm waiting to listen to Lady Gaga's voice, because I'm a big fan. I think she's a phenomenal singer. And all the collaborations she did with Tony Bennett, and you know, I think she's great. I love her voice. So I was like looking forward to listening to her voice. But then her voice is just in the background, yeah. like she's a, you know, doing BVs for the band, as the Stones did a million times before with great female singers, like who are there to be backing vocalists, to not take the lead. And that's what she's doing in a brilliant way. And the lyrics, the melody, the groove, the keyboards, everything, the whole atmosphere of that song made me stay on the platform until the end. I missed the train and I said, I want to get to the end of this song because this is absolutely beautiful.
It is, isn't it?
And
It's
yeah,
a
it
lovely
is.
song.
And you have the version that's in the album, like so rock and roll, because when they finish, they keep jamming to the song.
Yeah.
And she's improvising on the melody, and he goes
And
really
yeah,
high.
and Stevie's
you see they're
keys
just
come
having a good
in,
time.
don't they?
Yeah.
They kind of, it goes quiet for a bit, and then Stevie's keys shine through with Lady
Yeah.
Gaga. That's
it's like,
lovely.
as a musician, you know that when you finish the song in a rehearsal, done, it's good. And you're like, you just keep jamming to the song because you enjoy the vibe, you want to do it again. So they're having fun. And just one more thing about that. So I read something that she wrote, Lady Gaga wrote on her Instagram, I guess, about the experience of recording with the Stones. Well, that proves our point that everything they did was their own choices, nothing like way too much planned. So basically, she was in the same studio recording in another room or something, and I think it was her agent or producer, someone who was with her, said, the Stones around today recording, so you just do want to go there and say hi to Mick. So yeah, cool, let's do it. They're friends. So she went there, and when she walked into the room, according to herself, they were jamming, and Mick Jagger didn't just say, "Oh, hello, here's a microphone." Just grab a microphone, and here are the lyrics. Just like, we're jamming to this thing. What do you think? And she was starting to hum along, and she got the lyrics, and they did that take. And she said they played live, so that's like the Stones with the incredible Steve Jordan on drums, and they have Stevie Wonder, and they have Lady Gaga, and they're just jamming, and they finish, and they're like, yeah, that was a good one. We're going to keep that take. And then she was like, cool, but she didn't know it would actually make it to the album. It was just like, I'm jamming with my friends, I might keep that track, whatever. And made it to the album. And what she said, and that has everything to do with what you said about not trying to be the star of the song. She said that she felt like, I don't know the exact words, I read this like long ago, so she felt like she knew she was becoming part of the history of the Rolling Stones, and she wanted to pay tribute to all the amazing female singers who worked with them. Lovely. So that's why she's working in the same style. Like, I'm here providing my voice to the Stones, not my personality or my, like,
not
I'm
my
not
status.
Yes, exactly. And what an amazing job she did, isn't it?
Beautiful song. I think it's just a testament to bands like Rolling Stones that you've got. But it makes me feel very what's the word? Proud, maybe, because I like music like the Rolling Stones and like the Beatles and like Metallica, and I like music that you have to do it yourself. I like music where you play your instruments. Yes. And even though the poppier artists sell more and become more famous, I love it when someone like Lady Gaga steps into the studio with the Rolling Stones and is still like, wow, it's the Stones. The respect that she has for them and that these other people have, it just goes to show what an incredible band they are. And a testament to her professionalism that she's just jumped in and done what she wanted to do, but it be in a tasteful way to pay homage and tribute to all the female singers that have sung with the Stones before. But yeah, it's a fantastic performance, and every guest on this album has earned their spot and has done what was necessary to make their song better. And you don't need stunning guitar solos or virtuosic vocals to show off and to show what you can do. You're on the album because most people know who you are. What your job to do now is to make the Rolling Stones sound better with you as a guest, and I think all of them have achieved it. Fantastic.
Exactly. So, and the point is, if you don't read the credits, would you know that Paul McCartney, Elton John, and Lady Gaga and Stevie Wonder are part of this album?
I guess right? So. I knew Paul McCartney was somewhere on the album, and then when that song comes on and the bass goes in, it goes into the bass break. He goes, "Go on, Paul." I'm like, that must be Paul. Yeah. Didn't clock Elton. Didn't clock Stevie. and didn't clock Lady Gaga. I mean, she was the only female vocal on the album, so when it got there, I kind of figured it was her. But even at the start, I was like, hold on, this must be some gospel singers. Maybe Lady Gaga's going to have her own verse in a minute. No,
it's like it sounds to me, right? Like sounds to me like it's a big rock and roll party. Everyone is having a good time, and the host of that party is Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
It's just that. Like he threw a party and invited his mates, and if no one is watching, we just want to play some music and have some fun. It sounds like that to me, and that's why I love the album so much. I think it's a brilliant album, and if that's the last Rolling Stones album, I'm really glad they are doing it in style. And I think the last thing I want to say about it, the feeling behind it, for me is, again, I feel like Mick Jagger is the big boss there. He is the guy in charge of, he's always been on the business side of it.
Yeah.
But it feels to me like musically, he's more in charge than anyone else in this album. And it's like accepting that as sad as it is, accepting that the end is near. Maybe for the band, maybe, for his career or whatever. And I mean, the Stones, but it's been about 50 years since people saying that the Stones are over, right? And so I might be wrong, and they might still be around in another 15 years. But
we can only hope.
You never know with those guys.
Did you?
But it sounds like a reflection of the past, embracing the present. That's how I feel like it. That's what I feel about the album.
Really nicely put, man. That's a lovely way to describe it. It wouldn't be a Rolling Stones album without a blues cover on it somewhere, wouldn't it? And so the final song of the album, and most appropriately, the Rolling Stone Blues by Muddy Waters. I loved how, because of how big Sweet Sounds of Heaven was and how produced it was, and all these guests, all these instruments, Rolling Stone Blues just brings it down. Mick and Keith in a room. I think maybe Ronnie's on harmonica or something, or vice versa. But they're just the three of them jamming to a blues cover, and most appropriately, the Rolling Stone Blues.
Yeah, exactly.
So poetic, so romantic, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And they have, like, you know what? That's an interesting thing, because it has some acoustic guitar. Like the acoustic guitar is the main thing, isn't it? And it sounds a bit like Robert Johnson in that way.
It does.
So that really communicates with the roots of the blues. And obviously, we're talking about Muddy Waters here, who Keith Richards has mentioned multiple times as one of his major influences. And Keith actually said that every time people say, "Oh, you guys are too old to keep writing and stuff," and he said, "Well, some of my heroes did their best work after 70 years old, so why should I stop?" He's when they released the last studio album, the last originals one, Bigger Bang, he actually said that, and said something like, "I think I'm yet to write my best songs."
Well, and Keith, we agree with you.
That keeps you going.
We agree with you, because some of this work is fantastic. Do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, well, just one more thing that crossed my mind. So he was talking about, and this is like mentioning this is my tribute to Charlie Watts, because
your tribute or Keith's tribute?
Yeah, well, it's me mentioning this. It's like I just wanted people to remember Charlie Watts, but that's what Keith Richards said about him. I mean, I want to say something. I want to say like that. Charlie Watts was a major influence for me as a drummer, and it should be for everyone as a musician. Because again, there's a lot of ego in rock and roll, but not letting your ego take over and putting music in front of everything else, making music more important than a musician, for me, is a real rock and roll attitude. And Charlie Watts was great at that. So I think it was the Howard Stern show, and he asked Keith Richards about the way Charlie used to play and how much space there was. And Keith Richards said, well, when you're a musician, silence is your canvas. And this, I think I've mentioned this before. Maybe I've said this in the show at some point, but I said this in conversations with people. And I find Keith Richards' approach to music so artistic.
Yeah,
it's
not formulaic. It's not theoretical. It doesn't go by the book of what chord you should theoretically play next. He's always about the artist's impression of it.
Yeah,
what I want to hear next.
yes, silence is your canvas. If the drummer doesn't leave any room, how can I play my riff? And his riffs are full of space. He plays, and then there's a rest, and then he plays again, and the guitars work around each other. And the Stones are really good with that. And that formula is there. Yeah.
Just a chance for me to get my favorite quote in of all time.
Yeah.
It's not about the notes you play, it's about the space you leave.
Exactly.
My favorite quote of music.
Really good at it.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
And that's it. Stuff. I just want to say as well that I'm really glad that they had something recorded by Charlie Watts to put in the album.
Yeah.
And
and do you know something else? On Live by the Sword, Bill Wyman's on bass.
Oh wow! I didn't
so we've
know
got
that.
one.
So this
I
said there's like song. 3 guests. I missed 2 here.
So we've got one song where all of the Rolling Stones are on it. Bill Wyman, Charlie Watts, and Jagger Wood.
Yeah, all Richards. The surviving original members are,
brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Do you want to get? I mean, I'll tell you what. I'll read a bit about this.
And the one who, I'm sorry.
No, go on. What did you say?
Yeah, so all the original members who were alive at the time, that the album,
the classic lineup.
It's great.
The success of this album, it's been out for a few months, and already, I mean, just check this out. So I found 30 album charts in which Hackney Diamond has entered in different countries around the world.
Right, amazing.
It peaked at number 5 in 2 countries, number 4 in 1 country, number 3 in 3 countries, number 2 in 4 countries, and number 1 in 20 countries.
Oh, wow.
So it just tells you, man, that the appeal for good old rock and roll music is there.
Yeah.
How can I mean, I take you back to the name of our first episode, which was entirely named that way for clickbaity reasons. We said rock and roll is dead, didn't we? But how can it be, man? Rock and roll, even in the new breed of rock and roll, is thriving. And the old schoolers, the guys who not invented it, but the guys who molded it back in the 60s, they're still going and writing music as good as this. I mean, it's not music, not when Mick Jagger's still kicking.
I told you about the fact that we said this when we did the Beatles episode, that my dad used to brag about, in my time, the Beatles and the Stones were topping the charts. And I can say the same. And this is
over the last few months. Yeah, the Beatles and the Stones. Yeah, brilliant. Do you know something interesting is the fans are loving it as well. I didn't know this. I don't know if you guys knew. You can review an album on Google now, and it goes as part of a Google review. So if I don't know, if you visit a restaurant and you want to search it before, it will tell you the Google reviews of the restaurant. Apparently
I much prefer that than the specialist reviews, because the one thing I love about what we do here is like we're music fans talking about music the way we normally chat. So we're having a conversation, and sometimes the specialists, the journalists, are going to write some reviews like picking on something really specific to say the album's not that good.
Well, check out this: 407 different reviews with an average score of 4.7 out of 5. Now, obviously, some of the averages might be swayed a little bit. You're going to have a Rolling Stones fan who thinks they can do no wrong, give it a 10 out of 10 or 5 stars out of 5. And you're going to have someone who hates the Rolling Stones for whatever reason, give it a 0 or 1 on purpose. So I take that number with a little pinch of salt, but generally that is an overwhelming favorable consensus that this is a really good Rolling Stones album, isn't it?
It is amazing. Yeah.
Excellent.
And just say the single Angry, isn't it? That's the
first one. Yeah, the first song and the first single.
It's funny, we didn't actually talk about it, but it's like, have a listen to it, because if you haven't listened to it yet, it's the image I got on my background here for the people who are watching this instead of just listening, that was taken from the video clip, which is absolutely amazing and very, very rock and roll indeed.
There you go. Felipe, any last words? What makes this album rock and roll for you?
The freedom.
Again, we always say it, but it's
whatever. The freedom to say whatever you want to say, to sing and play in any way you want, and having your mates around to make some music.
Yeah,
how cool is that?
Excellent. Okay, and we'll end with my monologue as usual.
Yes.
Right. So Hackney Diamonds is a really good album. The album has a really nice variety of styles, spanning and including everything that we've come to know the Stones for: pop, blues, rock, and even a bit of soul. I think the production has played a huge part of this too, and Andrew Watt has done an incredible job in making the Stones sound like their classic selves, but yet fresh, exciting, and vibrant. The songs are all bursting with lovely mixing and tones. To hear them still making Rolling Stones songs as similar in quality, tone, and overall sound as they did decades ago is a joy to behold. You'd think that they might have waned a bit in terms of still having the ability to come up with, new songs, new riffs, new melodies, but no, we are treated to plenty of that in this album. I look at some of my favorite bands like Pink Floyd, Metallica, Deep Purple, Iron Maiden, and I look at their new / later albums, and I often think, well, this is okay. It's good in places, but it doesn't really hold up compared to your best work of decades gone by. But this Stones material holds up incredibly well and could actually go on to compete with some of their classic work. I think the first three songs and Sweet Sounds of Heaven in particular shine through. To put it simply, this album has a few contenders that could make it onto their greatest hits album. And I think that's the best and highest compliment I can give it, considering how good. I mean, we know how good they are, don't we? Songs like Satisfaction, Wild Horses, Ruby Tuesday. The best compliment I can give to Hackney Diamond is that a few of these songs, in my opinion, the first three tracks and Sweet Sounds of Heaven, could go on a Rolling Stones' greatest of album. It's a really great piece of work, and amazing to consider that this was written and executed by three men aged 76, 79, and 80, almost 60 years after their debut album. Rock and fucking roll.
Perfect.
Oh, what an album. We said it in the Beatles episode a few episodes ago, didn't we? It's like, what year are we in? Rolling Stones and the Beatles have released new music. It's like, but yeah, a joy to behold, exactly. A joy to behold. And it's fantastic that for completely different and separate reasons, they're both quality releases from bands that are over 60 years into their lifetime, if you want. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. For those listening, please give us a review on Spotify and Apple. It really helps us fly up the charts and be viewed by more people. And if you're watching on YouTube, then give us a like, comment, let us know your thoughts on the album, and subscribe to the channel so you stay up to date with videos, and share us with anyone else you think might like our content.
Yeah, anything else to say, man?
No, just your final line, remember?
All right, my final line, the same. Keep on rocking, everyone.
I don't think we should ever change that. I think that's the staple.
Well, I can add to it. So let me say the way I normally say to my friends: don't do anything I wouldn't do, and keep rocking, everyone.
That's got to be your new one. Yeah. Please, that's right. Let's do it again. We'll start again. So, just for everyone who listens,
we're not going to edit this out.
No. For everyone who listens, Felipe, one of my best mates over the last 5 years. Every time I say goodbye to him, he's always like, "Right, bye, Laz. Don't do anything I wouldn't do." So that is entirely appropriate. So that's got to be your new signing off line now. Okay, here it is. Felipe's new signing off line.
All of you boys and girls out there, keep on rocking and don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Thanks for joining us, guys. And as usual, take care and long live